Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Governor's Committee on People with Disabilities. I'm the Accessibility and Disability Program Coordinator, Matt Dickens. We will be talking about the Texas Education Freedom Accounts programs as it supports students with disabilities. Today we have Lindsay here. She's a manager at the Texas Comptroller's Office of Public Accounts, and she'll be leading us today. I'll give you some general information before we get started as today. There will not be an option to use the chat just because this is a webinar, which means that if you have any questions, please use the Q&A tool that is available there on the screen. And you can use that to ask any questions you may have. We will have a moderator, and her name is Melinda, and she can help to answer any of those questions you may have, or she will guide us through that process. After the webinar today, um, there will be a survey that pops up so that we can gather feedback. And later, after the survey, you will get some information from Zoom, an actual email. If you wish to complete the survey later, and this email will also include a link of our GCPD page to access the webinar recording and any other materials. All right, now I will turn it over to Lindsay. Go ahead and get started.
Thank you for hosting me today, Matt. I'm excited to introduce the Texas Education Freedom Accounts program. It's actually launching tomorrow. Parent application window opens tomorrow. So we're all very excited here at the Comptroller's office. As mentioned, my name is Lindsay Bearwald. I work here as a marketing manager in the Comptroller's office, along with a small but very talented team working hard for the launch of this largest day one education freedom program in the country. Slide. The Education Savings Account program was passed in Senate Bill 2 during this past 89th regular session in 2025. This program has been officially renamed and branded as the Texas Education Freedom Accounts Program, or TEFA. You'll hear me refer to it as that throughout this presentation. Slide. Families can use these funds for a variety of educational related expenses, including private school tuition, tutoring, curriculum, and more. The application process for families, as I just mentioned, opens tomorrow, and the first funding will be available for the 2026-27 school year. Slide. All Texas children are eligible as long as they reside in the state of Texas. They are a citizen or national of the United States and lawfully admitted, and they are eligible to attend a public school or are eligible to enroll in a public school's pre-K program. Slide. For pre-K, it's important to note that there are specific criteria to be eligible for pre-K. You have to be eligible for free pre-K in the state to qualify for pre-K. Those criteria are set in statute, and they are shown on this slide. I'll give y'all some time to read through it. Slide. Next, this slide talks about prioritization tiers that were also set in Senate Bill 2. Here, it's important to note that this is not a first come, first served program. So all applications received during the application window will be prioritized by these tiers, not by the date the applications are submitted. That's really important, and you'll hear me probably say that a couple other times today, that it is not first come, first serve. So let me dig into these tiers. There's 4 main tiers. Tier 1 is for students with qualifying disabilities and a household income at or below 500% of the federal poverty level. For reference, that's about $165,000 a year income for a family of 4. From here, all categories are based on income. Tier 2 is for families with an income at or below 200% of the federal poverty level. Tier 3 is between 200 and 500% of the FPL. Tier 4 is all other applications at or above 500% of the poverty level. And also in this specific tier, which is the highest income tier, there are a couple of other factors. One is a preference or additional prioritization for students that are currently in public school that will be moving to private school in 26-27, as well as an overall limitation on the amount of funding that can be spent in this category or funded in this category. That's capped at 20% of the total funding. Overall, these tiers are given priority to children with disabilities and with lower income families. If interest exceeds the available funding we have this year, which was about $1 billion, these applications will be placed into these tiers and a lottery will be run and make awards starting with the tier 1 applicants. And then we'll just keep running down the list and making awards until our available funding runs out. The note at the bottom here is important. If one child is selected in the lottery, all eligible siblings who applied during this first year application will be accepted with them. So that means, for example, a child with a disability prioritized in tier 1 may have a sibling that is prioritized in tier 2 or 3. So when or if the tier 1 child receives an award, all of the siblings in tier 2 or 3 also receive award at the same time. Slide. Slide. Now we'll talk about funding. The funding a child receives depends on their chosen educational setting and whether they have an individualized education program or IEP on file with the Texas Education Agency or TEA. Students attending a participating private school receive $10,474. Students attending a participating private school with an IEP for special education services can receive up to $30,000 depending on the funding indicated on their IEP. All other students, including homeschoolers, receive $2,000. And these are all annual amounts and awards, and they are on a per applicant basis. So if you have 3 children in private school and all 3 apply and are funded, they would each receive the $10,474 per year. At the time of the applications, parents will need to select which setting they would like to have for their student in the 2026-27 school year, which will let us know how many accounts we can fund. Slide. So the TEPA funds can cover a range of education expenses. You can see these broad categories on this slide. It's not an exhaustive list of everything, but it's important to know that no funds are provided as cash to participating parents, and the program also does not provide reimbursements. So that means all of the purchases you see here, whether for tuition or textbooks, will occur on the program platform. Slide. Last year, we contracted with a company called Odyssey to help us administer this program. They are the company that will run the platform where all of these transactions happen, including the application process starting tomorrow. They are also contracted to help us raise awareness about the program and conduct our lottery and make awards in April. Slide. We'll start talking about that application next. Slide. As I've mentioned, applications open at 9 a.m. tomorrow and they close at 11:59 on March 17th. Again, this is not a first come, first served program, and parents can apply at any time in the next 6 weeks window. This application is designed to be mobile friendly, accessible, and Odyssey is attempting to verify some information electronically to avoid a lot of uploading of documents or other information wherever possible within the application. Slide. Slide. On our website, which is educationfreedom.texas.gov, we have lots of toolkits and lots of resources. One of them is the Parent Prep Checklist, which provides a lot of this information for parents. Parents will provide their social security number or their ITIN, which is the individual tax identification number. They will provide the social security number for their students, and parents will provide their Texas driver license. Depending on what the parents are able to provide here, they may also be required to provide additional documents to establish their citizenship or lawful presence of their child. And those additional documents are listed on this slide. Slide.
Do you mind reading
Oh,
what you see here on
sure.
the
Yes,
slide? Simply because there's some people who may not have visual access. Do you mind just reading what's there?
absolutely. Those additional documents include a birth certificate or report of birth abroad, a certificate of naturalization, a certificate of citizenship, or other official documentation. Of
Thank you so much.
course. They may also be required to provide other forms of documents to provide Texas residency. And those include a utility bill, a lease agreement, a mortgage statement, or a voter registration certificate. Slide. So in order to receive prioritization in that tier 1 that we just spoke about for a child with a disability or additional funding through an IEP, parents will provide this additional information for funding purposes. So to receive up to the $30,000, parents will provide information to verify an IEP on file with the TEA in the last 3 school years. So those school years are 2023-24, 2024-2025, and 2025-26. For prioritization only purposes, parents can provide an expired or out-of-state IEP, a full and individual initial evaluation, or a new TEFA disability certification form that is available in the toolkit on our website. This new form allows a qualified professional to provide a diagnosis that a child has a qualifying disability that adversely affects their education. Any of these items secure prioritization in Tier 1, assuming the income requirements are also met. Only an IEP in the last 3 school years would be used to determine additional funding, and Odyssey will be getting their IEP information for funding straight from the Texas Education Agency. Slide. For income purposes, parents will have to provide their 1040 from either 2024 or 2025. This income information is necessary also to prioritize applications in those tiers. Slide. I'll quickly go over the timeline of major events starting with tomorrow. Slide. Parents can start applying tomorrow at 9 a.m. through 11:59 p.m. on March 17th. And again, it is not first come, first served. When the applications close, we will prioritize all applications and run the lottery if needed. So if the amount of applications does not exceed the available funding we have, there won't be a need for a lottery. We don't expect that to happen. We expect there to be a lot of interest in this program and that a lottery will be run. And then we expect to start notifying parents if their children will receive an award in early April. For students that are attending a participating private school, parents and schools will confirm enrollment later this summer before we fund their accounts on July 1st. We have more than 16,000 schools in the program as of this morning, and I checked again just now, and we're up to almost 17,000. So schools are being added continuously, and they will be added on a rolling basis over the next several months. Some of the schools are not added yet because they're working to complete their accreditation or meet the required 2 years of continuous operation, but they're all very eager to participate. So if you don't see your preferred school, when you log in to apply, don't worry, they may still show up in the next couple weeks or months before you have to decide or choose that eligible school. Some parents are looking for a private school that best meets their children's needs. Allowing parents and schools to confirm enrollments into the summer gives these schools and parents time to make these decisions. Slide.
And I have a brief question.
Mhm.
So related to how parents are informed about these things. Like, how are they notified?
Their account will receive they will receive an email from the Odyssey platform if their account is funded.
All right, appreciate it.
Of course. This talks about the minimum funding cadence that's laid out in Senate bill. We expect to have a dynamic waitlist, which means some parents may come off the waitlist during the program year. Their funding may be prorated depending on when they come into the program, but that is an option. These funding dates are the initial funding distribution, which is at least 25% on July 1st. The initial additional funding, at least 50% on October 1st. And any remaining funding on April 1st, 2027. And I'm catching a typo in this slide, so I will get an updated, it's definitely not August 2025, so I will get that corrected before that goes out. Slide. Okay, here are a few places that everyone can go for additional information. Our Odyssey team has hired 55 people dedicated to providing customer service support for Texas, and they have additional resources also as if needed. They have a helpful list of FAQs as well on their support site here, linked support.withodyssey.com, and a chat feature as well that does a very good job answering questions using AI. They also have an email and a toll-free number, help.texas@withodyssey.com. And the number is 737-379-2362. Slide. Here is a QR code link to our educationfreedom.texas.gov website, which has a lot more information, the toolkit with a lot of additional resources, as well as where you can go when you're ready to apply. And the application link will be at the top of the page in a gold button. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you all very much.
All right, we'll go ahead and open it up for questions. Melinda, are there any questions?
Yeah, okay. Believe you said this, Lindsay, but do they have to reapply if each year if selected?
I didn't hit on that, so thank you for that question. You do not have to reapply. You will have to recertify, which means that you state that you still want to continue in the program and that your educational settings are the same, but a whole new application will not be needed.
Okay, great.
And I also have a question. This is Matt. Related to that question that was just asked, once they recertify, are the funds the same for the next year, or are there separate accounts, or how does that all work?
Yes, funding, as long as their educational setting does not change from a private school to homeschool or vice versa. We can't guarantee that if they select homeschool and they want to begin participating in a private school, that we can increase their funding because we the legislature and everyone will decide the funding amounts, but they can go bump down from private school to homeschool. We also can't guarantee that if someone is working on their IEP process right now and they don't have it by March 17th, that when they recertify next year and have that IEP for the additional funding, that we will be able to meet those needs as well. But they will be asked, and if we can meet those needs, we will.
Understood.
Okay. I have another question. If your IEP includes a full-time paraprofessional and this translates to receiving 30K a year, when the private school receives your 30K, do you have any recourse if they never provide the paraprofessional?
I have our lovely legal counsel here with me too, Mark, if he wants to jump in on this question, I would love that.
All right.
Hello, everybody. So if I understood the question correctly, it was if your private school isn't providing the funds that providing the services that you believe you're entitled to do so. Yeah, if that's the case, you would contact us and the program will investigate that.
Okay, great. Our next question, in your presentation,
Oh,
Lindsay,
this is Matt. Could I jump in for
okay.
just 1 second? So, in addition to that last question, I'm wondering about were the school to have several people that were to utilize that same service? Suppose the parents, is there a cost share?
I think, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, the school and the students that are sharing the service in their contract with the school can work out an agreement. But that is done through, all of that will be done through the school contract with the parents.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that. I've never heard of that, so I can't give you an answer to that question. I'm not sure.
All right.
Okay. So in your presentation, Lindsay, you mentioned all other students. Does that include public school students?
Good question. No, public school, you cannot be enrolled in a public school to receive funding. You can either be in a participating private school and receive the 10474 or additional funding for any disabilities, or you can be in a non-participating TEFA private or non-participating TEFA private school or homeschool. So the any other students means anyone not in public school, and they would only receive up to 2,000 though. If you're not in a participating TEFA private school, but you are in a private school, you would be maxed out at that 2,000 level.
Okay, great. If a parent is disabled and does not have 2 years of tax returns, what do they need to send?
So I apologize if that slide wasn't clear. It's only 1 year. You can, if you haven't filed your 2025 taxes yet, you can use your 2024 1040. And so you don't have to submit both. It's one or the other.
Okay, great. And just to confirm, in this next question, so if the child has a slightly older IEP but completes a TEFA disability form, they still will not qualify for the enhanced disability funding. How does this work when the relevant school district has not responded to requests for an updated IEP?
I can answer that first part. Yes, if the IEP is older than 23-24 school year, they don't need to fill out the TEFA disability certification form. That document, the older IEP, will qualify for prioritization purposes, but not additional funding purposes. I know the schools have 45 business days to get back on new IEPs. And I know there's a backlog right now. I think there's a lot of people trying to get their IEPs for this TEFA program specifically. So I can't really add anything else onto there about the schools. I would say I would continue to work on getting the IEP updated so that in future years, when we go back to the legislature and say, look at how many people were on this wait list, please fund everyone on the wait list, which is what the bill tells us to do. Next session is to let us know how many people were waitlisted so that they can say we need to fund everyone on the wait list and give everyone additional funding that needs it. So I would say continue to work with your school district to get the IEP current so that in future years, we're able to fund you at the level needed.
Okay. So if a school chooses your student and they don't use your funds to provide what is in your IEP and you return to the public school, does the money follow you back to your public school?
You have to return the funds in your account that haven't been used. But I'm not sure, Mark, on when you transfer from a private school back to a public school, how those funds transfer with the child. They won't be in your account, still you will have to give the funding in the account back.
Yeah, the funds will not transfer with you when you go to the public school.
Can parents enroll Texas students that does not participate in TEFA? I'm not understanding the question. Let me. Okay, please confirm. If we have an IEP from the 24-25 school year, can that information be uploaded into Apex and be accepted?
Yes.
Okay. What is the poverty line for a family of 3, which the tiers are based off of?
I don't have that whole chart. It's going to be under 165 because the 500% of the poverty level for a family of 4 is 165. I don't have the whole chart in front of me, but it is we can get that sent over with our PowerPoint presentation as well. We have it all laid out for 200%, 500%, and then up to 9 children.
Okay. Earlier you said 16,000 schools had been added. Did you mean 1,600?
1,600. I'm sorry if I said 16,000.
Confirming. All right. And yes, they will be able to get a copy of your presentation. If a child in a family chooses for just this upcoming school year to not participate, and the other children are chosen, oh, you answered that. They can be automatically chosen for other upcoming years or just that current year.
So you don't have to apply for all of your children every year, or in this first year, you can apply for just maybe one that wants to be homeschooled, or one goes to private school, one goes to homeschool. That's kind of the beauty of this program is you can choose per child which educational setting works for them. Any siblings that aren't applying for the program this year, they will come in the first. Siblings are considered first priority for year 2 and beyond. So they will be priority 2 when they apply in future years if one of their siblings is already in the program.
And yes, comment here. So just to clarify that. So they have to be in the STEP program or
step siblings.
If step siblings, do they also qualify?
Oh, I haven't had a question about step siblings yet. Mark, would it be if they claim them as a dependent, if that they would be able to be considered?
I don't know that question either. That we've never had that one before. That's a good question. We'll have to look at that and we'll publish an answer on that.
All right.
Okay, what if the household income increases after the award? Does that jeopardize eligibility?
We do not, when you recertify, you do not recertify income. So you are not taken out of the program if your income increases.
Okay, and I believe you answered this, but in order for homeschoolers to qualify, they will need to get an IEP, correct?
Homeschoolers, an IEP is not needed for homeschoolers.
Okay,
It the IEP or the TEFA disability certification form can put them into the higher prioritization
okay.
to be selected sooner than they may if they didn't have one. But the max amount for a homeschooler or other private school student that's in a non-participating private school is 2,000.
Okay, is the private school selected required to provide the services and accommodations listed in a student's IEP?
I am under the assumption that you have to work with your school, the private school that you're attending, and get that worked out in the contract. But Mark, please feel free to add any additional information.
Yeah, in order to get the funding, they have to provide the services that correspond to the funding.
Okay. So right now, if you do not have a current IEP, the additional certification form needs to be filled out by a professional, correct?
Yes, you
No,
can
no,
use
no,
a
not a current. If you, for prioritization, you don't need a current IEP.
correct.
Only for funding, you need a current IEP.
Only for the funding. Okay.
For prioritization, you can have an expired Texas IEP. You can have an out of state IEP that's verified either by the issuing state or the issuing school district, or you can have an FIIE. Or if you don't have any of those things, you can use the disability certification.
This is
Okay.
Matt. I've got a question. I think probably for Mark. So if a student has an IEP plan and it's already established, and those services don't require a cost. Let's see that it requires a teacher to do specific things. Like, can the private school require the teachers to follow those specific actions and behaviors listed in the IEP? Like, I'll give you an example. Like a student who has diabetes, for example. How does that work out if that student were to need a shot, perhaps during the day? That doesn't necessarily require extra money on the behalf of the school, but requires an action.
Um, but the specifics of how that works in the educational setting is not really anything I'm an expert on. Um, the all I can say is that if the IEP requires specific services, that are the services that can be funded on in that instance. I'm not sure how that would fall into it, so I just can't tell you on that. I'm not an expert on that. I apologize.
That's all right.
Are foster youth eligible?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. What is a child with a disability does not have access to a what if a child with a disability does not have access to a private school in their area that can accommodate their needs? Can they access funds for therapy and enrichment if not enrolled in a private school as a child with a disability?
So I think what you're saying is if they're enrolled in a private school, but it's not a TEFA participating private school, can they still receive funds? And the answer is yes, but it is the $2,000, not the $10,474 or up to $30,000 for a child with a disability.
Okay, can you review what types of things that funds can be spent on, products, services, etc., and must be using vendors on the platform? I mean, it's a
Yes.
question.
So
Okay.
our vendors will be signing up soon. There are some PDSES vendors that are already on the website, and you can see them on our Finder tool on the homepage. So you can see about 200 right now. Our open application for other vendors and service providers will happen by early March. And again, they will all be listed on that Finder tool and in the Odyssey TEFA marketplace. But it's anything from transportation, uniforms, technology, which I didn't mention is capped at 10% of the total award, um, tutoring services, therapies, um, textbooks for homeschoolers, curriculum for homeschool, you name it, a lot of it, meals at your private school, etc. Um, there's going to be a lot available.
Great. So if you do not get in the first year due to not being selected in the lottery, then will there be additional lotteries in future school years?
You will have the opportunity to reapply in the second year, and you will have um, second priority behind siblings.
I've got another question. This is Matt. Can you clarify on that simply because before you mentioned that there was a waiting list? So I'm wondering after the waiting list, so then you do have to apply again, even if you're on the waiting list?
I think it is your information will already be in the system, so it won't take as long, even though a full application is only taking about 10 to 15 minutes per student. But I believe you're going to have to reapply, yes, because you will have to re-upload different additional information at that time.
Understood.
Okay. So if my child is already in a private school and he has autism with an IEP, but our income is higher than plan A, will this give us a lower chance of getting accepted into the program?
So if your income is at or above 500%, and your child does also have a disability, you are in that tier 4 priority group. Only tier 1 is for 500% and below and a disability.
Do 504 students who want to enroll in a private school or homeschool qualify if they have a 504 plan?
A 504 is not going to be an acceptable document to upload for prioritization, but they could, if their accommodations or disability adversely affects their education, they may be able to have a qualified professional complete the TEFA disability certification form, which will be an acceptable document to upload for prioritization purposes.
Okay, I've heard that some private schools require that parents agree to pay full annual tuition even if their student is no longer enrolled in the private school. If my student is accepted through the lottery, am I exempted from this requirement if the private school does not work out?
I don't know that answer. Are you saying, can you repeat it?
Sure. I've heard that some private schools require that parents agree to pay full annual tuition. I'm guessing at the beginning, even if
Okay.
their student is no longer enrolled in the private school. If my student is accepted through the lottery, am I exempted from this requirement if the private school does not work out?
So I think I can answer that. If the contract between yourself and the private school states that tuition is paid up front, however, your student leaves the private school the private school will have to return funds that were not used. So if it came out to $1,000 a month and you left with five months left, they would need to be returning those unused months of funding.
I've got a question. This is Matt. So if they have to pay up front in the beginning of the school year, and then that may become an issue simply because they're not getting a percentage of the funding. Um, if
I
that makes
understand. The funding amounts are set in statute. The comptroller's office may end up, that's the minimum. So they may end up funding in additional installments. That is just the minimum required. So if they have to pay it all up front, unfortunately, the system cannot reimburse parents. They will have to spend the funds on other eligible expenses during the program year.
Thanks.
Okay, is there oversight of a private school who is accepting kids on IEPs for the money but not providing the supports?
I believe we'll be auditing schools in the program.
Sorry, I'm getting a lot of the same questions, so I'm working through them.
Not a problem.
Okay. I noticed that about half of the schools currently listed in the database of eligible schools are pre-K daycare centers. Will there be a limitation to what percentages go towards pre-Ks and daycares?
There will not be a limit on the percentages. It's going to depend on the lottery and which children are chosen and what grade or age that they'll be going into.
How are schools being notified or encouraged to become a partner of the program?
We have a lot of great partners out there that have been the Texas Private School Association, the Texas Conference of Catholic Bishops, Odyssey, ourselves, that have been marketing this program. We have about 4,000 schools on our list of folks that will be receiving links to apply to the program that are accredited and meet all of the requirements. So I think all the private schools are very aware of the program. Some may not choose to participate in this first year if they may be nervous, but most of them are calling and wanting to be in the program so that they can accept these funds from students.
Um, Are there any guidelines to follow while participating in the program?
The main one is to not unenroll if you're in a private school, and unenroll from the private school and go to a public school. That would cause you to lose funding. If you moved out of the state, there will be a parent guidebook created soon and on the website that will list those other qualifications. Students in grades 3 through 12 also have to complete a nationally norm referenced assessment test as well in the program. But those are the big requirements. I'm sorry, I can hear someone talking behind me. I hope y'all can still hear me well.
Yeah, we couldn't hear him. Okay.
I've got another question. This is Matt. So if I go back to the siblings question, in the application, does it have a line on the form that says how many brothers and sisters does this child have? Because for example, let's say a person gets accepted into the program and they have 8 brothers and sisters, right? So that would affect then the bottom line because it would affect how many people we can then select in the lottery. So how are we keeping track of the students selected that would then bring along siblings with them that would affect the numbers that were available to then give out in the lottery?
So as people are being drawn, you pick the first student and take off the amount that they received based on they will have an IEP. So you take off that amount. You would check in the system if they have any siblings that are participating, and and at that time grab those siblings and did reduce those amounts as well by those siblings, and then move to the next person in the lottery, and so forth until all 4 tiers are cleared or until the funds have run out.
Okay, we're going to switch interpreters.
If you are unsure about if you are pulling your child with disabilities from public schools at this time, can you apply now and decide based on whether or not you get the educational account, whether to move forward?
Absolutely. That's also a great question. You can be currently enrolled in public school to apply. There are timelines in that where you need to make a decision if you're going to homeschool them or go to a private school. And then by June 1st, you have to receive funding on July 1st. By June 1st, you have to have selected the school that you're enrolled in. And another important part to mention there is that you do have to enroll in the school outside of the system as well as select that participating school in the system. And then that's participating school will confirm your enrollment, and then you'll receive the funds on July 1st. The only downside to possibly waiting to see if you receive funding in early April is that there may not be enough available spaces in the campus or the school that's your preferred campus. But you do not have to be a current private school student to apply for these funds.
Okay, great. How are they determining the additional funds for children with disabilities to reach a max of 30,000?
The codes on the IEP, we are working with the Texas Education Agency. It's based on the codes listed, and then they have a database, and for each code and then the public school that they're in, there's different amounts for each of the codes.
Okay, I'm asking, someone asked for you to clarify a previous response. If the disabled child is already in private school setting and has an IEP prior to 2023, and the relevant public school district has not responded to requests for an updated IEP, there is no possible way for the student to qualify for enhanced funding, even with a completed disability certification form completed by my medical professional, correct?
Correct. But we encourage them to continue working with their school district to get that IEP for future years.
And
this is Matt. So for the school district, if they were to have, different people applying, who would be responsible to help them through that application for TEFA? Well, and their IEP as well.
I don't really understand the question. I'm sorry.
Absolutely. So I'm asking if the school district, are they able to have people who are responsible for helping parents navigate that system as they're going through the IEP as required for TEFA?
I believe each school district has a dedicated staff person that assists with the IEP process.
Okay, and I thought I'd ask this question, but I might not have yet. So does prioritization for children with disabilities change with private school versus homeschool?
The prioritization does not change. It just would be the funding amount. The disability will get you into that top priority if you make at or below 500% of the federal poverty level. And then, so you'll have top priority. And then if you're selected if you're a homeschooler, you'll get up to 2,000. But if you're a private school, TEFA approved, going to a TEFA approved private school, you can receive the 10,474 or additional.
Is there assistance to help parents choose a school?
There's a school finder tool on our website where you can search the TEFA participating schools, but we do not have, in each of their boxes, they leave as much information, maybe if they service different languages or different special ed communities, they'll list that information in there as much as possible, but we don't have any other services besides the school finder tool.
And so if I don't see my child's school on the list, can I apply with the intent to change schools? For example, my son is 4.5 and has autism, and we just moved from a public school to a private school, but I don't see our school on the list. So I just need to find out if if we're eligible.
It may be that they're just haven't applied yet. So please keep checking back. You can also contact your current school, and ask if they intend to apply or if they're aware of the program. And then you would know that, but you certainly can change private schools.
Okay, and so this question is about the tiers. Do they refer only to the amount of funding versus the selection process to be accepted?
So the tiers break it down into the priority groups only, not the amount of funding that you'll receive. The prioritization tiers, 500% poverty level and below, and a disability, they're in priority tier 1. And then from priority tier 1, as the lottery is grabbing applications, if they have a current IEP, they would get from 2023, 24, or newer, they would get the additional funding. But if they are a student that only has the TEFA disability certification form, they would just get the $10,474. So the tiers are just for prioritization.
Okay.
And then when they're selected, what documents they provide for the disability affects whether they get the additional funding or not.
Okay. Oh, here's a good question. If the technology is assistive technology, does it still get capped at 10%?
That's a good question that I have not heard yet.
Okay.
I think Mark might be unmuting.
Yeah, that's a good question. We have not gotten that one, so that's another one we'll look into and post something.
Okay, great. Okay, can you explain the difference between the disability certification form by an accepted professional and an IEP completed by a public school staff?
You want me to handle that one? So
Yes, sir.
So the big difference is the purpose for which the forms are used. So the certification form is only used for prioritization. Only. That's the only thing. It's not an IEP. It can't be used for funding. It can't be used for any other purpose. It's purely to set the prioritization level. The IEP and all the form does is it just is basically like a checkbox where a qualified professional says, this child has a disability that requires special education services. And that's it. So that then sets that's a child with a disability that then falls within that tier 1 prioritization, assuming that the income level is below that 500% level. The IEP is the actual program that the child receives under special education. So that's what's used for funding. So that's the certification form doesn't have any of those details. It's just determination that the child has a disability.
Okay. I see we're running down to just the last few minutes. So I've got several more questions though, so we'll just see what we can get through. You said you believed you were auditing the private schools. The question was in regards to IEP compliance. Can you share more on how you'll be auditing them? Has that checklist been developed? Is it yearly? What can you share on this?
That checklist is being determined. Mark, do you have any other additional information? I don't believe every school will be audited every year, but they do have to submit documents.
Yeah, that's still in process. And as I think I answered a question earlier, if there is a situation where you believe you're not getting services that have been paid for, then please contact us and we'll investigate and take any corrective action.
Okay. Will public school
And I
completed
have an
credit?
additional question as well related to that. But if go ahead and finish the next question.
Okay. Will public school completed credits be transferred to private schools and vice versa if returning back to public schooling?
That's another question I have never gotten. I can look into that though.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Matt.
Yes. So it was related to the disability form. As we're looking at, the measurement or the limits that we may have, how, like, suppose someone is actually at that poverty level, and are we looking at the level of disability, severe versus not, and how all of those things qualify them?
The legal standard is what's set by Texas regulation. So that the certification form is basically turning the regulations into a digestible, hopefully, form that can be filled out. So whether something whether a disability needs to reach some level of severity, that's described in the regulations if that's the case. And the regulations are um, transferred on the form. On the form, there, we have a set of instructions that go with it, and the instructions set forth all those criteria that are found in the regulations. So there are 14 different types of qualifying disabilities, and each one has their own criteria. And so if a particular type of disability requires a particular level of severity, it will be set out there. And if it doesn't, then that's not required.
Okay, thank you.
And Lindsay,
And I think we have time for one more question.
yeah, I was just going to ask, the funds, will they be available for the 26-27 school year?
Yes, funds will start being deposited July 1st.
Okay, great. Well, I'll stop right there.
Absolutely. I really want to thank everyone who's asked the questions. Those were excellent questions. Thank you for the presenters for coming and being available to answer. I know some of those were tough questions, and as soon as we receive, more info, we will get this sent out. And I appreciate everyone. So for those who continue to have questions, here's the contact information. We've got also frequently asked questions available and anything related to TEFA. So again, thank you everyone, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you all.
Thank you.